Chapter 7. Christmas Eve held so much magic as I woke up to falling snow lightly tapping at my window, asking me to arise with the sun. I rolled over onto my stomach and gazed out the huge picture window that I never wanted to pull the blind on. It was spectacular. The snow began falling thicker and thicker as the mountains and valley seemed to disappear in the storm. I managed to see headlights come into view below as Sean's pickup truck made it to the driveway. I suddenly became as giddy as a child. My big brother was here, and tomorrow was Christmas. I barely remembered telling Mother I had sent huge boxes from Amazon to her address weeks ago and instructed her just to store them in a closet wherever I would be staying, and I would wrap them when I arrived. I did not even know what I bought them. I just remember handing Martin my debit card and telling him things I thought I knew about my family, which was very little, and gave him a budget. I went over to the closet and pushed out the doors, revealing 5 huge boxes. I wondered what was inside each of them. I hoped I knew which gift would go to whom, so wrapping would be fun. I closed the doors, pulled on some jeans and a festive enough red sweater. I ran my hairbrush lazily through my hair. Shorter hair was becoming so easy these days. It took me minutes to get ready now as opposed to the standard hour I was so used to. I put my comfy boots on and headed downstairs just in time to greet Sean as he was putting presents under Mother's beautiful tree. He looked up when I came around the corner and smiled at me. "Did I wake you?" he asked quietly. "Nope," I told him. "I was up with the snowfall." "I got here just in time. There's 0 visibility. I could have walked, but how was I going to bring everything with me?" He laughed as he placed the last present under the tree. I noticed my name on some of them and immediately felt this enormous lump of guilt forming deep inside my stomach. All these wasted years and he still bought me presents. I deserved nothing under that tree but coal, or visits by 3 ghosts to show me the error of my ways. My first experience with Ebenezer Scrooge came directly from Mickey Mouse. They played a 30-minute short of Mickey's Christmas Carol before a screening of The Rescuers in theaters when I was a child. I fell in love with that story, even if it did scare me right out of my Wonder Woman underoos. The 80s were known for traumatizing children. That Christmas, I asked for a copy of A Christmas Carol in book form for my very own. Charles Dickens became a literary hero of mine, even if that book was somewhat advanced for me. I pulled it out and read it every Christmas. I came to understand all the big words in it. I would annoy my brother by quoting lines of decreasing the surplus population and getting broiled with your own pudding with a stake of holly through your heart. Yes, I became ruthless with it. I envied Scrooge's strength, living alone because some idiot girl could not wait for him. He gave a big middle finger to all the happy people. Life was about how you make yourself. No one was going to make you for you. You had to rise up and do it all. Well, then a bunch of spirits came along and showed him the error of his ways. Still, it made a great story. I just did not get the entire meaning until, well, this moment, watching Sean placing presents tenderly under the Christmas tree that my mother had lovingly decorated. If I was visited by a spirit guide, though, did that mean I was getting the Scrooge treatment? And life imitates art in amazing ways. Mother came downstairs to start the coffee and hugged each of us good morning. "Mother, do you have any of my old books?" I asked, hoping to find my copy of A Christmas Carol. "Yes, sweetheart, they are all upstairs with the other things you did not take to college in the attic. I will show you exactly where after breakfast." She smiled knowingly at me. It was like she had been waiting on me to ask for my things for a long time. "Thanks," I smiled back. New me was getting used to real smiles. Without all this having to try so hard in order to keep an image up or worrying about fine lines and wrinkles, I found such ease in simply being. I felt extreme guilt for being such a closed off and cruel person for so long. It is not okay that I put everyone around me through utter hell so that I could get ahead in life. I was still learning to navigate it and damn well was not going to stop trying to make up for all the pain that I caused. I watched Mother cook as she gave me a tutorial on tofu. I was amazed at how something that started out as a block of bean curd could turn into something that resembled eggs, but tasted even better in my opinion. I had only been here for a few days, and I was already feeling better. My mysterious ailment seemed to be dissipating as the pain was not so severe now. I still had some stiffness when I woke up, but I was not feeling the intense soreness of life in full stereo now. It was reduced to a dull echo. Maybe all the articles I heroically shared all throughout my social media feeds were right. Maybe this was the way to go. My head definitely felt clear. I wasn't so disconnected from the world, and I did not feel it necessary to be someone that I wasn't. I just had to find out who I really was. This timid girl had been hiding behind this powerful, yet ironically weak at the same time, falsehood of a woman way too long. Food had never tasted so good to me. As I sat down to breakfast and focused on my food, I slowly enjoyed every last bite. I silently focused on my plate before me, instead of shoveling food into my mouth while I stared at a small digital screen. I quietly noticed just how having my phone in my face while trying to eat a meal had greatly affected my digestion. Now, I was silently nourishing my body with wholesome foods, as loving people sat next to me around the table doing the exact same thing. It was like they were silent teachers and I was learning from them telepathically. They did not need to tell me to leave my phone in my room. I had not touched my phone in days. They did not have to tell me to be quiet. I just followed suit as to what they were doing. It was easy and no one had to physically instruct me. It just felt right, and I fell into the rhythm of what I now know as mindful eating. When all the food had been consumed, Alan busied himself with the dishes as Mother took me up to the very top level of the house, the attic. Behind a door next to my room housed a dark, curving staircase. Mother turned on the light for me, and it illuminated all the way to the top. All of your boxes have your name on them. Just go pull out whatever you want. I figure you don't need my help with your things. But they're all as you left them, just in boxes. She smiled and headed back downstairs to help Alan with the cleanup. I watched her leave, then looked up the twisted stairs. What a hidden surprise in a house such as this. Here, I assumed I was going to have to climb a pull-down ladder into one of those tiny holes in the ceiling that was placed in the weirdest location, like the smallest bedroom closet, or in the middle of the living room as an eyesore to all. This, though, was nice. Mysterious, even. Like upstairs further is another room, and it is full of magic. It is full of my childhood. I grabbed onto the railing and started up the stairs. With each step, my heart pounded louder as I felt the magic popping all around me like sizzling and fizzling soda. The energy was so warm and inviting, like the wonder of a child. I felt as if I was entering a time warp when I reached the top step, and the first thing I noticed in the corner was my antique dollhouse. I was always allowed to play with it if I did so gently. It was an old Victorian, and I remember playing with it, wishing one day that I would be lucky enough to have a Victorian mansion on several acres of land. I walked over to the dollhouse and ran my fingers over the dusty roof, the gabled tiles rough beneath my fingertips. I peered in with eyes as bright and big as the sun. I noticed in the dining room the tea service was set up on the table. Mother must have set it up exactly the way I had left it. I loved grand tea parties as a child. When you are mostly on your own as a child, you tend to live in a fantasy world of your own creation. I lived in the world of never-ending tea parties. The husband and wife were seated at the table. The baby was asleep in the crib upstairs. I always enacted a family that was so deeply in love with each other and their child. A couple who was so attentive to their baby, but when the baby was asleep or quietly at play a few feet away within their watch, the couple would stare deeply and lovingly into the other's eyes, having developed an unspoken form of communication that had them contented in each other's hearts. I made the husband so strong, brave, incredibly handsome, yet kind, gentle, and wealthy. This was an expectation that I held for everyone I ever tried to get serious with. Unfortunately, no one ever held up to my standards, so I made them feel inferior, using them and then discarding them. I never fully embodied the characteristics of the wife whom I felt was kind, loving, adventurous, intelligent, a radiant star in the husband's eyes. So I could not blame anyone but myself for the quality of men in which I attracted. I turned my attention to the boxes. So many were stacked neatly on top of one another. I saw 4 boxes with my name on it, followed by the word books. I began. The first box housed my books for school. One by one, I pulled out yearbooks, publications I'd written articles for, and graduation items. I was valedictorian of my school. I remember my speech being one of empowerment and conquering. I opened my senior yearbook and saw myself plastered on many of the pages, with an arm draping over one of my many best friends. I stopped and thought what a world away I was from that naive and overbearing high school senior so long ago. Mom sent me up here to make sure you found what you needed. Sean was leaning over the ledge at the top of the stairs, watching me. I had not even heard him come up the stairs. Yes, thanks. Some of this stuff is hard to look through, I told him as I looked back down at the yearbook. You were the mighty one, even in high school, he chuckled as he walked over and sat on the floor next to me. Don't you mean mightier than thou? I made my first joke ever at my own expense, as I flashed him a picture of me delivering my valedictorian speech. You said it. I did not, he laughed. Honestly, I don't talk to anyone I went to school with these days. I have no idea how they are doing or what they have been up to, I sighed. You should friend them on Facebook, Sean suggested. The sad thing is, I probably already did, and they either got lost in my enormous feed or I hid them because I thought they were pathetic. Or worse, I deleted them or they deleted me. My honesty was scaring me lately. So, you start over. New friends. Odds are, if they are not in your life now, they are not meant to be. Just because you are friends with them on social media does not mean they actually are in your life. Words of wisdom from my brother. I feel awful for asking this, but are you on Facebook? I looked up at him. No, I was for a while there, but it got to be such a drag. So many people arguing and complaining about their lives. The sad thing is, the more they argue and complain about their lives, the harder it gets. When you complain, it is like asking the universe for more of what you are complaining about. The universe grants your wish and poof, your life sucks. He held up Jazz hands to emphasize the poof. Now, whoever needs to be in my life is there, not on my friends list, he said as he watched me thumb through the yearbook at a quicker rate and then slammed it shut. I lost count of how many friends I have on Facebook. I haven't been on there for days anyway. I tossed the yearbook back in the box with all the other items from my school days and placed the lid firmly back on. Don't collect friends. Find a few good hearts and cherish them, he instructed me. I turned to look at him and noticed how grown up he looked in the dim lighting of the attic. We were basically a year and a half apart. He was older, but I always saw him as the mean big brother who was constantly annoyed by me. And here we were, having a long and civilized conversation. We had both grown up a lot. Even if I was back to square one, living at home with practically no money at 35. Ouch. So, what are you looking for in particular? He asked, breaking the swirling thought bubble above my head. Oh, a Christmas Carol, I said, somewhat embarrassed. Well, how fitting, he said as he stood up and proceeded to help me go through all the boxes labeled books. 30 minutes later, in my hands was a dog-eared, worn paperback of Charles Dickens's holiday classic. I clutched it to my heart like a long-lost treasure, proud to still have it after all these years. The light in the attic suddenly flickered and then went completely out. Complete silence followed as there was an absence of a low hum of the furnace. Well, the storm managed to knock the power out, Sean, stating the obvious. You kids okay? Alan called up at us. Yep, we're coming down, Sean called back down. I laughed. Even in a snowstorm with a power outage, there was still a sense of magic in the air. We carefully reached the bottom of the attic stairs, holding on to the railing. Mother greeted us at the door. Alan is going to start the generator. We are going to use it for the cooking. We can all camp out in the living room tonight in front of the fireplace if it stays out for that long, she told us. A camp out sounded wonderful. I will go give Alan a hand, Sean said and walked off quickly. Did you find what you needed? Mother asked me. Yep, I smiled as I held up the book. Perfect. You should read it to us tonight by the lamplight. It will be a very old-fashioned Christmas, she suggested. That sounds like fun, I told her, and she headed back down to the kitchen. I popped into my room to gather a few things. Then I realized I still had yet to wrap the gifts. I went downstairs to inform everyone that I was wrapping gifts before it got too dark, and please don't disturb me for the time being. Then I headed back up and pulled out all of the boxes in the closet. I hoped Martin ordered the tape, scissors, and wrapping paper I had asked for as well. I did not want to use Mother's. If I had the same paper as they used, I would look cheap. Oh well. I was a different wrapper now. I was a different everything now. The first box held the most beautiful snowflake wrapping paper I had ever seen. It was white and silver as the snowflakes seemed to crystallize, giving it a three-dimensional appearance. Also included standard scissors and Scotch tape. Perfect. Next box, a beautiful snow globe filled with a man and a woman in a loving embrace, surrounded by a snowy mountain scene. It was musical and played the song Perhaps Love by John Denver when you turned the little crank underneath. I wound it up and listened for a moment. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I absorbed the little clinking notes that were tinkling out of the snow globe. I never cried. It was like listening to angels singing. It sounded so beautiful. I pulled myself away from it long enough to place it back in the small box it came in and wiped my tears. I wrapped it up and wrote, "To Mother and Alan" on the top. Next was a gift set of soothing lavender lotions, bath salts, massage oil, an eye mask, neck warmer, slippers, and robe, all placed delicately in a satin-lined gift box. It looked exquisite. It was all made without harsh chemicals, and I could smell the heavenly scent of lavender through the plastic sealing the items in place. I wrapped it up and wrote, "To Mother" on the top. Next box had 3 gift sets of vegan hot chocolate and beautiful hand-painted mugs. I wrapped all 3 and put Sean, Mother, and Alan on each respectively. I stopped to ponder at how well Martin had done. His taste was impeccable, and I had no way to really thank him. Well, in a way that he would listen and accept that I really was sincerely thanking him. I pushed on with the next box. First, I pulled out a hand-carved chess set. The detail was extraordinary. The little pieces were each carved delicately and took on a magnificent medieval feel to them. I placed everything back in the wooden box that housed them and did my best to wrap the monstrosity before placing the name Sean at the top. Then, out came a rather large computer monitor. It was a top-of-the-line monitor. I had no idea what Sean did for a living before coming here. How did Martin know? I wrapped it up and labeled it. The next box was just as magical. There was a wind chime with tiny birds on them. I assumed it was for Alan, as he seemed to be an avid bird watcher. A beautifully hand-painted sign that said Namaste, also for Alan. A hand-painted sign that said Welcome Home, which I assumed was for Mother. The last box was one that completely had me frozen for a while. I pulled out a sizable table fountain. I did not remove it from the box, but just stared at the picture on it. It had beautiful rocks in it and a cascading waterfall. It was copper in color, but what struck me were the words that were hand-painted at the bottom part of the fountain. I've come home with you. The words had been echoing in my head. I've come home, but never the with you part. Was that my mission? To come home with someone? Suddenly, a gentle knock sounded at the door, and Alan's muffled voice sounded from behind it, telling me that he was so sorry to bother, but lunch would be ready in 10 minutes, and he just wanted to let me know. I thanked him and went to the task of wrapping the fountain, putting Mother and Alan at the top. Then I pulled myself together and headed down for lunch. A nice warm stew was on the stove. It was so lovely to have power for the kitchen, in a circumstance that would have been tragic for me, even with power in the kitchen. I felt like this was such a warm and loving way to spend Christmas. As always, lunch was a self-serve meal. I ladled the amazing-smelling vegetable stew into my bowl and sat down next to Sean at the table. Mother beamed as she sat next to Alan, and he beamed right back. Love. Love seemed nice. I'm not sure why I was so afraid of love for so long, but this was not scary at all. I felt their love as it seemed to radiate from the two of them and hit everyone in the room. So, this was a loving family. After lunch, Sean and I braved the still blowing winter storm to bring some more firewood in. On our last run, I slipped on the icy patch and landed on my butt. Sean rushed over to make sure I was all right. With my head in my hands, I started shaking. Oh my God, Kat, what hurts? Is anything broken? He gently pulled my hands away from my face to find that I was indeed laughing. My ass was now frozen and a little sore. I was certain come Christmas morning I would have a black and blue butt. I was staying in a house that was cold and without power in the middle of nowhere, not a Starbucks nor a Tiffany's in sight. There was no concierge to help me out. I lost my job. I was virtually broke. I hardly knew my own family. My assistant knew them better than I did. I lost every last one of my so-called friends. I was alone in life, yet here I was, laughing my bruised and frozen ass off. Sean did not know what to do. He had never seen me laugh before as an adult, quite like this. I hit a high pitch to my almost maniacal laugh, and he panicked. Seeing his obvious distress, I tossed some snow in his face and laughed even harder. Now visibly more relaxed, Sean bent over to make the most perfectly formed snowball in under 2 seconds flat and hurled it right at my face. The white icy mix stung my face as it splattered across my nose. Good aim, brother. I resumed laughing as I wiped my face off. I reached my hand up silently, asking for assistance to my feet. He took the bait, and I pulled him down to slide face first into the snow. His feet completely went out from under him. It was a beautiful, graceful plunge, a perfect 10. His head popped up as Mother and Alan appeared at the back door, laughing along with us. We should probably go in and change before hypothermia sets in. I'd hate to lose a limb along with everything else I have lost, I suggested. With that, we both laughed as we struggled to our feet. We skated along to the back door. We decided upon pajamas for the rest of the day. We all huddled around the fireplace in the large living room. Mother had placed air mattresses all along the floor. We sipped hot tea and shared stories. No one had any deadlines. No one had anywhere to be. No one had anywhere else they wanted to be but with each other. I noticed for the first time that they had no television. I did not bring it up, but I did take notice. There were computers downstairs for work, but I had never seen them use computers. No one wandered about with a smartphone in their hand. No one used electronics as a means of distraction. Everyone was just immersed within the moment with the people around them. It was new and strange to me, but I realized that I had not missed my phone since I got there. Sure, it was mainly because I was mortified to see what was being said at my expense. I just would rather be in the moment with people who seemed to love me unconditionally. For dinner, my mother had managed to make a feast out of tofu that was beyond this world. There were many different flavors swirling around my palate all at once. It was like I was being served duck à l'orange, but without the duck. For dessert, she had baked the most rich chocolate cake I had ever tasted, washed down with some coconut milk. After dinner, we all gathered around the fire on our own air mattresses. Mother lit the oil lamp next to me, and I began reading A Christmas Carol. Everyone was engrossed in the tale as I used various voices and dramatic effects to make the storytelling more like watching it on TV. We laughed and marveled at Mr. Scrooge as he learned his lesson on how he should honor Christmas and his fellow man. I read through until the clock struck 11 and the tale was told. We were all starting to get sleepy, and Alan suggested we do a gratitude circle before we drift off to sleep. "What's a gratitude circle?" I asked as I got up to place the book on a nearby end table and turn down the oil lamp. "It's really simple. You've probably done something similar at Thanksgiving. Just follow along." He smiled as he sat straight up on his mattress that he was sharing with my mother. "I am so very thankful for this family. I never thought I would have a family quite like this before, but now I have it. I am forever grateful for each and every one of you. I'm also thankful for our business, which allows us to spend more time with each other than with work." He smiled as he passed the gratitude to my mother. "I am thankful for this family as well. We all seem to have changed for the better, and since Kat arrived, we have expanded our love even further. We have a much more fulfilled life because of you two, and I'm so very proud of both of you." She smiled and passed the gratitude on to Sean. "I am so thankful to have my sister. I never knew what it was like to have a sister who was open to this experience and open to love. It shocked me when I first saw you at the airport, and it confused me beyond belief because of how much you have changed. But it is a good change. I think this is the best Christmas we have ever had." He smiled and passed the gratitude on to me. I sat there on my air mattress in silence for a moment. Surely they were speaking of another. I did not deserve these kind words. I was evil, awful Kathryn Wilde. Before I knew it, words that were not my own escaped my lips. "I am thankful for each and every one of you. I have learned so much from all of you in such a short amount of time. I never knew that family was supposed to be quite like this. Most of all, I'm thankful to be home." Without anyone left to pass the gratitude on to, I just sat there smiling. Everyone was looking at me expectantly and smiling. I was not sure what I was supposed to say, so I said what was most natural to me. "God bless us, everyone."